3 months had passed since Earth cut off the Council. Admiral Yoon Hanna stood on the bridge of the horizon, the newest and most powerful ship humanity had ever built. Behind her, through the great windows, she could see a fleet of 200 vessels waiting in perfect formation. These were not the ships Earth had built during their time in the Council. Those ships had followed alien designs, using alien technology, built to alien standards. These new ships were purely human. Every bolt, every wire, every line of code came from human minds and human hands. 3 months of isolation had forced humanity to innovate. Without access to Council technology, their scientists had returned to basic principles. They had asked simple questions. Why did things work the way they did? Could they work better? The answers had surprised everyone. The jump gate drives that humans had supposedly bought from the Council were actually based on stolen human research. But in 60 years, nobody had improved them. They worked well enough, so nobody bothered to ask if they could work better. Human engineers asked that question. And they found answers. The new drives were twice as fast and half as large. They used less power and required less maintenance. In 3 months, humanity had surpassed technology that the Council had not touched in centuries. This was the true lesson of the withdrawal. The Council had not just stolen from humanity, they had held humanity back. They had given humans just enough technology to be useful but not enough to be threatening. They had trapped a young species in a cage of borrowed knowledge. Now the cage was broken. And humanity was finally growing. Secretary General Kang Tae stood before the United Earth Coalition in the Great Assembly Hall in Seoul. Every leader, every representative, every voice that mattered was present. They had gathered to answer one question: would Earth return to the galaxy? We have received 142 requests for aid, Tae began. Species we have never met are begging for our help. Empires that mocked us now offer us their crowns. The galaxy believes it needs humanity to survive. He paused and looked across the assembly. They are right. They do need us. But the question is not whether we can help them. The question is whether we should? Linari was the first to speak. We should not. We have earned our peace. Let the galaxy solve its own problems. They had 60 years to build something that did not rely on our labor. They chose instead to use us. Now they can live with that choice. Park Woo disagreed. Isolation will not last forever. Eventually, we will need to trade with other species. We will need allies against future threats. If we abandon the galaxy now, we will create enemies that will hate us for generations. Admiral Hanna offered a third path. We return, but on our terms. We do not join the Council. We do not follow their rules. We build something new, something better. And we only help those who proved worthy of our help. The debate lasted for hours. Old arguments were repeated. New ideas were proposed. Some representatives shouted in anger. Others sat in thoughtful silence. Finally, Tae raised his hand for quiet. I have listened to all of you, he said. And I believe Admiral Hanna is right. We cannot hide forever. We cannot save everyone. But we can build something that the galaxy has never seen before. An alliance based not on power but on principle. He activated a holographic display. It showed a simple document written in clear language. This is the founding charter of the Terran Compact. Any species may join if they accept 3 conditions. First, all members are equal. No elder species, no younger species. Just partners. Second, all members contribute fairly. No one takes more than they give. Third, no member may exploit another. Ever. He looked at the assembly with steady eyes. These are not complicated rules. They are basic decency. But they are rules the Galactic Council could never follow. That is why the Council failed. And that is why we will succeed. The vote passed by a wide margin. Earth would return to the stars, not as servants but as founders of something new. The first species to join the compact was the Morthii. Ambassador Tella delivered their acceptance personally, traveling to Earth on a ship held together with hope and borrowed parts. Her people were starving, their world was dying, and they had nothing left to offer. But Tay welcomed her anyway. You were kind to us when kindness cost you nothing, he told her. Now we will be kind to you when you need it most. That is what the compact means. Tella wept openly. In her culture, tears were a sign of weakness. But in that moment, she did not care. We do not deserve this, she whispered. Perhaps not, Tay replied gently. But that is not the point. The point is to be better than those who came before. If we only help those who deserve it, we are no different from the Council. Within weeks, 6 more species joined. Then 12. Then 30. The Terran Compact grew not through conquest, but through reputation. Species that had been abandoned by the Council found hope in humanity's open hand. Species that had been enemies for millennia made peace under human guidance. Chancellor Oron watched from his crumbling station. The Council now had only 7 members, and even those were preparing to leave. Everything he had built, everything his ancestors had created, was turning to dust. He sent a final message to Earth. It contained only one line. You have destroyed 10,000 years of order. Tay's reply was broadcast across the galaxy for all to hear. No, we have ended 10,000 years of stagnation. The Council did not bring order. It brought obedience. It crushed new ideas because they threatened old power. It kept the galaxy frozen in place while the universe moved on. What comes next is up to all of us. Not just the eldest, not just the strongest, everyone. Admiral Hana led the first compact fleet into former Council space. They came not as conquerors but as builders. Behind the warships came cargo vessels filled with food and medicine. Behind the cargo vessels came transport ships filled with engineers and doctors and teachers. Hana looked at the stars that had once seemed so hostile and smiled. For 60 years, she had fought other people's wars. She had watched her soldiers die for causes that were never their own. She had dreamed of a day when humanity would be treated with respect. That day had finally come. On the Morthi homeworld, the first human agricultural teams began their work. They would save the dying crops. They would heal the poisoned soil. They would teach the Morthi how to feed themselves without depending on others on a dozen other worlds. Human engineers rebuilt failing infrastructure. They did not do it for profit or power. They did it because it needed to be done. Because that was who humans were. The galaxy had not crumbled because Earth left. It had crumbled because it had been broken all along. For 10,000 years, the elder species had built their civilization on exploitation and lies. They had covered the cracks with paint and pretended everything was fine. Humanity had simply stopped holding the pieces together. Now, for the first time in millennia, the galaxy had a chance to build something real. Something that could stand on its own. Something worthy of the stars, and humanity would be there to help. Not as servants. Not as masters. Just as equals. Finally, Chancellor Oren's ship entered Earth's solar system under a flag of peace. It was a small vessel, unarmed and unarmed. The mighty leader of the Galactic Council had come not as a conqueror but as a beggar. Admiral Yunhana's fleet surrounded him within minutes. Hundreds of human warships, sleek and powerful, formed the wall between Oren and the blue planet he had come to visit. State your purpose, Hana's voice crackled through the communication channel. Oren sat alone on his bridge. He had brought no guards, no advisors, no servants. This was a journey he needed to make by himself. I wish to speak with Secretary General Kong Tae, he said. I come in peace. I come to apologize. The word felt strange in his mouth. In 200 years he had never apologized to anyone. The Velthari did not apologize. They were the eldest species. They were always right, but Oren was no longer sure about anything. There was a long silence. Then Hana's voice returned, cold and flat. You are permitted to land. 1 ship, no weapons. You will be escorted at all times. If you make any threatening move, you will be destroyed. I understand, Oren replied. Thank you. He landed in a field outside the city of Seoul. The sky was gray with clouds and a light rain was falling. Oren stepped out of his ship and felt water touch his silver skin for the first time. It was not unpleasant. Human soldiers surrounded him, but they did not point their weapons. They simply watched. Their faces showed no anger, no hatred, only a careful blankness that revealed nothing. A ground vehicle took him to a small building in the heart of the city. It was not a palace or a government tower. It was an ordinary structure made of concrete and glass. Oren had expected to be taken somewhere impressive. Instead, he found himself in a simple meeting room with plain walls and basic furniture. Secretary General Kangte was waiting for him. He was a small man, shorter than Oren had expected. His hair was gray and his face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp and steady. "Chancellor," Tay said calmly, "please sit." Oren sat across from him. There was no one else in the room. No cameras, no recording devices. Just two leaders facing each other in silence. "I have come to offer you everything," Oren began. "Full voting rights for Earth, permanent seats on all major committees, reparations for the technology that was stolen. Whatever you want, it is yours." Tay listened without expression. When Oren finished, he asked only one question: what changed? Oren hesitated. He had prepared many arguments. He had practiced many speeches. But this simple question cut through all of them. "We need you," he admitted. "The galaxy is falling apart. The Draven are conquering world after world. Species are going extinct. Our communication networks have failed. Our fleets cannot coordinate. Everything is broken." Tay nodded slowly. "That is what changed for you. But what changed about us? What makes humanity more valuable today than we were 2 months ago?" Oren stared at him. "I do not understand. 2 months ago, you laughed at Admiral Hannah. You told her that humans were young and foolish. You told her we needed you. Now you sit before me offering us the galaxy on a plate." Tay leaned forward slightly. "So I ask again, what changed? Are we suddenly older? Suddenly wiser? Or are we exactly the same people we always were?" Oren felt something cold move through his heart. He understood what Tay was asking, and he did not have a good answer. "You were always valuable," he finally admitted. "We simply refused to see it. We looked at your short lives and your small bodies and your young civilization, and we decided you were lesser. We were wrong." "Yes," Tay agreed. "You were wrong. But being wrong is not the worst part. The worst part is that you knew you were treating us unfairly and you did it anyway. Because it was convenient. Because it was profitable. Because we were too kind to fight back." He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the rain had stopped. Sunlight was breaking through the clouds. "My people want revenge," Tay said quietly. "They want to watch the council burn. They want to see your species suffer the way we suffered. I could give them that. We have the power now. We have the ships and the weapons and the technology. We could become the new masters of the galaxy." He turned back to face Oren. "But that is not who we are. That is not who I want us to be. We did not leave the council to become conquerors. We left because we refused to be slaves." Oren felt a strange sensation. Something he had not experienced in many years. Hope. "Then you will help us?" "No," Tay replied. "Not the way you want." "The council is dead, Chancellor?" "It died the moment you decided that some species were worth more than others. What comes next must be different. It must be built on equality and respect." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. "This contains a proposal for a new alliance. We call it the Terran Compact. Any species may join, but only if they accept our terms. No exploitation. No hierarchy of elder and younger. Only equals working together for the common good." Oren took the chip with trembling hands. "And if we do not agree?" Tay smiled sadly. "Then the Velthari will face the darkness alone. Just as we faced it alone for 60 years. The meeting ended. Oren returned to his ship and left Earth's solar system. His mind was spinning with thoughts he had never had before, all his life. He had believed the Velthari were the greatest species in the galaxy. He had believed the Council's way was the only way. He had believed that power came from domination. Now he wondered if everything he knew was wrong. Meanwhile, far from Earth, Warlord Keth's invasion force began to collapse. Without human supply chain managers, his armies ran out of food and ammunition. Without human engineers, his ships broke down in hostile space. Without human medics, his wounded soldiers died from simple infections. The conquered systems rose up against him. The Draven Imperium, which had seemed so powerful just weeks ago, began to fracture from within. The galaxy was not just falling apart. It was being reborn, and humanity would decide what shape it would take. The Draven Imperium attacked without warning. 3 border systems burned in a single night. Their ships came out of hyperspace like wolves falling upon sleeping sheep, and the peacekeeping fleet could do nothing to stop them. Admiral Yoon Hana watched the battle reports from Earth's defense perimeter. Her screens showed the destruction in cold, clear numbers. 14 peacekeeping ships destroyed. 8 more captured. 40,000 soldiers dead or missing. Many of those soldiers had served under her command years ago. She knew their names. She knew their faces. She knew the families they had left behind. Her officers looked at her with desperate eyes. They wanted to help. They wanted to save their old comrades. The ships were ready. The weapons were armed. "No," Hannah said. The word was like stone. "Admiral, please," one officer begged. "They are dying out there. We can save them. They are not our people anymore." Hannah's voice was cold, but her hands shook slightly. "The Council chose to treat us like servants. They chose to steal from us. They chose to mock us. Now they must face the consequences of those choices, alone." She turned away from the screens. She could not watch anymore. But she would not change her order. Back on the Council station, Chancellor Oren received the news of the invasion with shock. How could the Draven attack so quickly? How could the peacekeepers fail so completely? His generals explained in broken voices. Without human tactical officers, the fleet could not coordinate. Without human navigators, reinforcements got lost in hyperspace. Without human medics, wounded soldiers died waiting for treatment. The peacekeeping force was not defeated by Draven weapons. It was defeated by the absence of human hands. Oren sent messages to every major species. He demanded they contribute soldiers, ships, and resources. He reminded them of their ancient oaths to defend the Council. Most did not reply. The ones who did made excuses. Their own territories were unstable. Their own people were suffering. They could not spare anything. The truth was simpler. They no longer believed the Council could protect them. They were preparing to protect themselves. 2 weeks after Earth's withdrawal, the Galactic Council began to fracture. The Velthari blamed the Morthi for not providing enough support. The Morthia blamed the Cassari for hoarding food supplies. The Cassari blamed everyone for everything. Species that had been allies for 1,000 years now pointed weapons at each other. Trade agreements collapsed. Borders closed. Ancient hatreds, long buried under the Council's enforced peace, rose to the surface like poison. Ambassador Tella tried to calm her fellow representatives. She stood in the Council chamber and begged them to work together. "This is exactly what Earth wants," she pleaded. "They want us to destroy ourselves. If we fight each other, we prove that we never deserved their help." Nobody listened. The chamber erupted in arguments and accusations. Tella was pushed aside and forgotten. She returned to her quarters and cried for the first time in decades. Her people were starving. The galaxy was burning. And there was nothing she could do. On Earth, Linari presented her most important report yet. It was a list of names. Every species that had shown humanity kindness during 60 years of Council membership. Every diplomat who had defended Earth in votes. Every scientist who had shared knowledge freely. Every soldier who had fought beside humans as true equals. There were only 7 species on the list. The Morthi were among them. Despite their government's failures, individual Morthi had helped humans many times. They had shared medical knowledge during the Kepler Plague. They had voted against the worst restrictions on human colonies. They had warned human diplomats about political traps, Secretary General Conte studied the list in silence. His face was unreadable. "We cannot save everyone," he finally said. "We do not have the resources, and honestly, many do not deserve to be saved. But these 7—" He tapped the tablet gently. "These 7 remembered that we were people, not tools, not servants, people." He looked at Park Wu, who had spent so many years among the stars. "Can we help them without helping the Council?" Park Wu nodded slowly. "It will be difficult. We would need to be careful. Secret shipments. Hidden contacts. If the Council discovers what we are doing, they might try to use it against us." "Do it," Tay ordered. "We are not monsters. We never wanted the galaxy to burn. We just wanted to be treated with dignity. Those who gave us dignity will receive it in return." The covert aid program began within hours. Human ships, unmarked and silent, slipped through the darkness of space. They carried food to the Morthi, medicine to the Yanari, engineers to the small Beccan colonies that had always welcomed human visitors. It was not enough to save everyone, but it was enough to save some. Meanwhile, the Council station grew empty. Junior species fled to their homeworlds. They no longer trusted the Council to protect them. They no longer believed in the great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Chancellor Oren walked through halls that had once been filled with thousands of representatives. Now they echoed with emptiness. Dust gathered on ancient decorations. Lights flickered and failed because nobody was left to fix them. He stood before the great window that looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, worlds were dying. Empires were falling. Everything his ancestors had built was crumbling to dust. He had laughed when Admiral Hannah delivered Earth's declaration. He had called her species young and foolish. He had believed the Council was eternal. Now he understood the truth. The Council had been dying for centuries. It had grown old and corrupt and lazy. It had survived only because humans kept fixing its broken pieces, and now the humans were gone. Oren closed his eyes and made a decision. He would do something that no Velthari Chancellor had ever done. Something that his people would consider the greatest shame imaginable. He would go to Earth. He would bow before the humans. He would beg for their help. It was his only hope. It was the galaxy's only hope. Whether they would listen, he did not know. The communication network died first. It happened 48 hours after the last human left the Council station. One moment, messages flowed across the galaxy at the speed of light. The next moment, silence. Chancellor Oren stood in the command center and watched his officers panic. They pressed buttons and shouted orders, but nothing worked. The screens showed only darkness. "Fix it," Oren commanded. "This is a simple technical problem." "Fix it now." His chief engineer, a Velthari who had served for 3 centuries, looked at him with fear in his eyes. "Chancellor, we cannot. The system was designed by our ancestors 1,000 years ago, but it has been modified many times since then. Patched and rebuilt and improved. The humans did all of that work. We do not understand what they did." Oren stared at him. "You are telling me that we cannot operate our own communication network?" The engineer lowered his head. "The humans wrote the code in their own language, their own logic. We have studied it for hours. It makes no sense to us. They think differently than we do. They solve problems in ways we cannot follow." For the first time in 200 years, Chancellor Oren felt afraid. On the border of known space, Warlord Keth of the Draven Imperium received the news with great joy. The Draven were warriors. They had been held back for centuries by the Council's peacekeeping fleet. But now that fleet was crippled, Keth studied the reports carefully. 40% of the peacekeepers were human. That meant 40% were now gone. But the damage was much worse than simple numbers. Human officers had written the battle tactics. Human navigators had memorized the hyperspace routes. Human medics had run the medical bays. Human engineers had kept the weapons working. Without them, the peacekeeping fleet was like a beast without a brain. "Prepare our forces," Keth ordered. "We attack in 3 days." Back on the council station, the problems multiplied by the hour. The water recycling system began to fail. The food distribution network slowed to a crawl. The power grid flickered and sparked. Each system had the same problem. Humans had maintained them. Humans had improved them. Humans had kept them running with creativity and hard work. Now there were no humans left, and nobody else knew how anything worked. Ambassador Tella watched her people grow desperate. The Morthi homeworld was dying. Their soil had turned to poison long ago, and only advanced farming techniques kept them alive. Human agricultural engineers had developed those techniques. Human scientists had modified their crops to survive in toxic ground. Now the humans were gone, and the next harvest would fail. Tella sat alone in her quarters and wrote a message to Earth. She begged for help. She apologized for every insult the Council had given. She offered anything they wanted in return. The reply came from Secretary General Conte himself. It was only one line long. You had 60 years to treat us as equals. You chose otherwise. Tella read those words again and again. Each time they cut deeper, because she knew they were true. She had attended council meetings where humans were mocked. She had voted for resolutions that hurt. Earth, she had done nothing while an entire species was treated like servants, and now her people would starve on Earth. Linari presented her latest intelligence report. The galaxy was falling apart faster than anyone expected. 3 major trade routes had closed because nobody could navigate them without human pilots. 17 space stations had declared emergencies because their life support systems were failing. 2 species were already at war over resources that humans used to distribute fairly. It has only been 2 days, Nari said quietly. In a week it will be much worse. Admiral Yoon Hannah listened without expression. Part of her wanted to help. She had friends out there, people she had served with for years, but she remembered every human soldier who had died fighting the Council's wars. She remembered every scientist whose work was stolen. She remembered every diplomat who was laughed at and dismissed. They made their choice, Hannah said. We made ours. Secretary General Tay looked out the window at the blue sky of Earth. He thought about the billions of aliens who would suffer. He thought about the chaos spreading across the stars. He thought about the blood that would be spilled. We are not doing this to punish them, he said softly. We are doing this because we have no other choice. If we go back now, nothing will change. They will thank us for a week. Then they will return to treating us like tools. The only way forward is through the fire. Park Woo, the diplomat who had spent 15 years on the council station, nodded slowly. They need to feel the pain. They need to understand what they lost. Only then will real change be possible. In the council chamber, Chancellor Oren called an emergency meeting. He demanded answers. How could one species be so important? How could the mighty Galactic Council fall apart because some humans went home? His advisors presented a report. It was long and detailed and terrible. Humans had filled every gap. They had taken the jobs nobody else wanted. They had solved the problems nobody else could solve. They had worked in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, keeping everything running while the elder species debated politics and counted profits. The Council had not enslaved humanity with chains. They had done something worse. They had used human kindness against them. They had taken advantage of a species that wanted to help, that needed to be useful, that could not walk past a broken thing without fixing it. And now they were paying the price. Chancellor Oren ordered the report classified. Nobody could know how badly they had failed. Nobody could know how much they needed the species they had treated like dirt, but it was too late. The cracks were spreading. The Foundation was crumbling. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Warlord Keth's war fleet began to move. Park Woo sat in the great chamber of the Galactic Council and watched his people lose again. The vote was 300 to 1. Earth's request for expanded colony rights was denied. The alien representatives did not even bother to discuss it. They simply pressed their voting buttons and moved to the next topic. He had spent 15 years on this station. 15 years of smiling at creatures who looked down on him. 15 years of being called a representative of a young species, as if humanity were children learning to walk. He was tired. So very tired, the Velthry Chancellor, a tall being with silver skin and 4 arms, announced the next matter. His name was Orin, and he had ruled the council for 200 years. To him, humans were useful tools. Nothing more. Park Wu left the chamber quietly. Nobody noticed. Nobody ever noticed when humans left. They only noticed when humans were needed. Far away on Earth. In a secure room beneath the city of Seoul, Nari stared at her screens. She was the director of intelligence for the United Earth Coalition, and she had just discovered something that made her blood run cold. For 60 years, humanity believed they had purchased jumpgate technology from the Council. The great engines that allowed ships to cross the stars in moments. Earth had paid enormous amounts for this gift. They had been grateful. It was all a lie. Nari's agents had found the original research files buried in a forgotten council database. The scientist who invented the jumpgate drive was human, Dr. Beek Gina, who disappeared 40 years ago during a research accident. Her work was stolen. Her name was erased. And her invention was sold back to her own people. This was not the only theft. As Nari dug deeper, she found dozens of cases. Human medicines rebranded as alien discoveries. Human engineering solutions claimed by species who could not even understand the math. Human art and music copied and sold across the galaxy while Earth received nothing. 60 years of theft. 60 years of lies. I sent her report to Secretary General Kang Tae with a single line attached. They have been stealing from us since the beginning. Kang Tae read the report 3 times. He was a calm man. He had built his career on patience and careful thinking. But as he read about Dr. Beek and all the others whose work was stolen, something changed inside him. He called an emergency meeting of Earth's leaders. The debate lasted 12 hours. Some wanted war. They demanded that Earth's fleets attack the Council and take revenge for decades of insult. Others wanted to continue as before. The Council was too powerful, they said. Earth could not survive alone. Kang Tae listened to everyone. Then he spoke. We will not go to war, he said. War is what they expect. War is what they are prepared for. We will do something they cannot imagine. We will simply leave. The room fell silent. Every human in the galaxy will come home, Tae continued. Every piece of technology we maintain will go dark. Every trade agreement will end. Every service we provide will stop. We will give them exactly what they have always said they wanted. A galaxy without humans. Admiral Yoon Hana was the first to support him. She commanded Earth's first fleet, and she had lost too many soldiers fighting the Council's wars. Wars that were never about protecting Earth. Wars that kept alien empires safe while humans died. They think we are servants, she said. Let us show them what happens when the servants walk away. The vote passed at midnight. The resolution was simple. Earth was cutting all ties with the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, 6 hours later, Admiral Hannah stood in Chancellor Oren's private office on the Council station. She handed him a tablet containing the official declaration. Oren read it slowly. Then he laughed. It was a cold, cruel sound. You cannot be serious, he said. Your species has been part of our galaxy for only 60 years. We have ruled for 10,000. You need our technology. You need our protection. You need us. Hannah looked at him without fear. She had faced death many times. This alien in his fancy robes did not frighten her. You misunderstand, she said calmly. We do not need you. We never did. We simply believed that cooperation was better than isolation. But you have taught us something valuable, Chancellor. You have taught us that some partners are not worth having. Oren's laughter died. For the first time he looked uncertain. This is madness. You will crawl back within a month, begging for our help. Hannah smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Perhaps. Or perhaps you will discover that the galaxy is harder to run than you thought. Goodbye, Chancellor. I doubt we will meet again. She left without looking back, across the galaxy, On 1,000 stations and 100 worlds, humans received the recall order. They stopped their work. They packed their bags. They said goodbye to alien colleagues who did not understand what was happening. Some aliens laughed. Good riddance, they said. We never needed the humans anyway. Others felt a strange fear growing in their hearts. They had worked beside humans for years. They knew how much the young species actually did. How many problems they solved. How many systems they kept running. Ambassador Tella of the Morthi watched a human engineer leave her station. He had spent 10 years keeping their life support systems functioning. She had never thanked him. Not once, now he was gone. And somewhere deep in her mind, Tella began to understand that everything was about to change. The humans were leaving, and the galaxy would never be the same.